Okay. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
How are you? Good? Okay, welcome to the fourth and last AFS Now. My name is Rodrigo Casarejo. I am the partner director of AFS Chile. I'm really happy to be here with you. Today we're going to have a conversation with some great guests about a very important topic. For the last 2 days, you've been encouraged learning about these great initiatives about global competence and global citizen. And now we're going to try to help you into pitching the best way to get funds to do your projects. So I really hope that we have an interesting conversation here, because this is the way on how we actually going to make our project happen. This is being alive in Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, just with the hashtag AFSCon. And everyone here in the room have a paper that they take or they sit on it, where then you can have questions that we're going to be answered along the conversation. Okay? So see the papers, and our volunteers are going to be recollecting the volunteers in the back. I'm going to be recollecting the questions that you have for our guests. So we're going to start. I want everyone here to help me welcome Kathleen Martinez, the Senior Director of National Study Initiatives in Kathleen.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so Kathleen, your work leading BP efforts to advance diversity and inclusion goals, in particular in the company commitment to STEM projects for K to 12 years old education. Why is this cause so important to BP, and how they help advance diversity and inclusion?
Okay, well, it's a very important cause for BP and a focus area for our work, because the stem of, the foundation, so what we do stems from our talent. And at the criticality of providing the energy that the world needs, we need innovators, we need talent, we need a lot of diverse ideas, and that's really important from a global perspective, from a national perspective, and a local perspective. So that the work we're doing in STEM and K12 initiatives, the majority of the work that we do is engaging with our communities, engaging our employees, so that they can be in schools and talk to students. One of the things I love to say is you can't be what you can't see. So we bring our employees into the classroom. If we go into a girls' school, we bring a female engineer or a scientist. At the end of the day, what we're trying to do is encourage young minds to consider STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. And in a constantly evolving world, we need to also integrate digital innovation and some of the skills that are very critical to the jobs of today and tomorrow. And so how we're doing this is we focus on a lot of very underserved schools. We focus on underrepresented minority populations. We work everywhere, really, but our employees also have an opportunity to pick a school, develop a relationship, work with teachers, answer questions, be a mentor. So I think that the work that we do in STEM K through 12 is just very, very, it's a long project, right? We're preparing students today for the jobs of tomorrow, but we're also sharing what we do as a company. I think that really sharing BP completely, what we do. And I think there's a lot of misperceptions of energy in today's challenges in energy and being what we call one of the largest challenges of our lifetime, I think, is how do we provide the energy that the world needs? But we need to also reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. And so that's a big part of BP. And so we're working with students to see that, you don't have to be in a nonprofit to make a difference in the world. You can work with a corporate partner because we need those innovations and we need those minds to help us problem solve for the future. And so we just focus on that, and great partnerships is very important. And so I think that's really at the stem of, or at the foundation of the stem.
Thank you so much, Kathleen. We actually in AFS are very proud of the partnership that we have together. The STEM program is very important for many of our partners, and we have seen extremely great results in all these young minds that go through the program, and after that they really want to pursue STEM careers. So,
and we're equally proud of that program. And I think the unique part of that program is the BP Global STEM Academies, if you're not familiar with it, where we provide scholarships to students to study abroad for a 4-week camp or academy, we call it, focused on not just science, technology, engineering, and math, but global competency and cultural understanding and awareness. So how are you working in teams to problem solve across difference? And we know at the very core of that is listening. Listening and being able to work with others and seeing something different and saying, I see a spark, and then adding to that. And I think that the unique part of the program is being able to blend those two areas. And we're just really proud of it. It's been a wonderful partnership.
thank you so much. So let's go to my second guest. I invite here Evin Schwartz, the CEO of Founder at Belouga. Hello, Evin, how are you?
Good, nice to be here.
So, Evin, you have a very diverse background. You have a background in the social impact sector. You have experience working with organizations that create impact in environmental, medical, and in the education sector. But you have also worked with organizations from around the world, from grassroots to startup, from huge organizations. So, help us a little bit about here. Like, how do you believe that the organization can best measure inputs and outputs in global citizen education projects in ways that are meaningful to funders?
Yeah, great question. I think the biggest thing to focus on first is that social impact and global education, or global citizenship, is a relatively new term, especially for investors, and one that really doesn't show a quick return. So from that side, from our perspective at least, it's setting up KPIs, so key performance indicators, for both the funder and the organization. And I think that's a really important thing from everyone in this room as well, if you're on the organization side, is understanding your worth. Right? Money is out there, it's smart money that you should be going for. So understanding from the organization side, what are we delivering? How long is this actually going to take for us? And then from the funder side, committing. Right? I think that's one of the biggest things. I mean, we're a startup company, we're venture backed, but always looking at it and saying, what is the next day hold? And I find that a lot in education. We find that a lot with NGO organizations as well, is they're doing fantastic work. The private sector and really the private equity funds have to be able to commit to a specific initiative, and those KPIs are absolutely tremendous. But really the biggest thing I'll tell you guys, especially from an investor standpoint and looking at it where there's not a quick return, is storytelling. And I think from a social impact side, the narrative is just as important as really the bottom line itself. So with not a quick return, how are you setting up unique KPIs in this sense that are going to tell the story and focus on the work that you're doing? I'll give you a great example, and I'm sure that's Kathleen shaking her head. BP does this as well. But really on our side, within Belouga, so we have a digital platform where students around the world are able to connect, communicate, and collaborate. But we focus not only on storytelling, but social impact. And we get approached by a lot of different communities around the world. Within our social impact, we look to connect real-world learning experiences with what we'll call just grassroots, real-world content and curriculum, in a sense, that teachers could actually utilize in their classroom. But how do we work with a group in Cambodia that might be building a well? And traditionally within, we'll call it the North American K12 classroom, traditionally it's, hey, there's a check and the well gets built. Right? From a storytelling standpoint, what we do is we look at the next organization and say, well, how is it actually creating sustainability? Right? We don't want to just see the well, we want to know what happens next. So now that you have clean water and the water's filtered, and we've given engineering skills to the local villagers, how are they actually excelling? and then you start talking about agriculture and business, and all of a sudden you've created this chain kind of reaction that's created actual ecosystems and value moving forward. So the storytelling is absolutely critical, and it doesn't have to happen, in overseas communities or really, we'll call it resource-strapped communities. We have a great program going on in Louisville, Kentucky. It's a big, big region for us from an education standpoint. And really what we look to do is kind of create these global ecosystems. So we brought in the K12 sector, the university sector, the private sector, and the NGO sector. And from an educational standpoint, looking at the traditional teacher, always looking for resources, both content and financial, and then bridging it in, right? So what I mean by that is how are we setting up teachers with specific content and learning opportunities for their students, then giving them a bridge directly to we'll call it the University of Higher Education industry, in a sense, that prepares our students for future-ready skills. So all these big buzzwords that everyone's throwing around, right? Future-ready, 21st century skills, and soft skills. How do we actually put that to work and create that bridge between K-12 and university? But once all that skill has been created and accumulated by the students, how do we then look to link them to NGO organizations within their own local community or globally that they're actually making impact, and then bringing in the private sector to actually fund these initiatives? So I think that's one of the biggest things from an input and output perspective. It's storytelling 101, how you're doing it and aligning with the funder to actually get on the same page and understand that an X check that goes into it isn't just for a quick return. Social impact is never going to show a quick return, I promise you that, because we're literally changing communities. So I think the storytelling and understanding direction from both funder and organization perspective is absolutely vital.
Thank you, Evin. So the power of storytelling and the power of understanding.
Absolutely.
And our last guest, please welcome David Potter, the Director of Partnership in California Global Education Project. Welcome, David.
Thanks. Hi.
David, you have helped raise $40 million to support North California sister cities, the National Security Language Initiative for Youth, the Kennedy Lugar Youth for Exchange and Study programs, and many other numerous programs. What can you tell us? How do you get more business engagement in support of philanthropy for education?
Yeah, great question. And a lot of that success has been, of course, with some people in the room here working. It's taken a lot of hard work from AFS community and other exchange communities to build the Kennedy Lugar Youth Programs, the National Security Language Initiative. A lot of work that's come out of the 9/11 push for more Muslim significant countries with American communities. So it's, as I tell my kids, things I like having kids, one of my favorite phrases as a parent is to my kids, the world doesn't revolve around you, Copernicus. And it's not about me. And as I've gotten older, these connections I've made, whether it's building programs or corporate fundraising or partnership building or individual donors, is less is more, less of me. People work with me. I have 50 ideas a day, right, of how we can do this. It's energy for, and this particular event, a conference, every conversation we've had this week has been fantastic around global competence. We're the most important people in the world right here, right? We want to keep going. But it's not about necessarily of my story, right? It's about listening really carefully. So active listening, I think, is the most important. Advice I have for any approach to somebody you want to partner with to help meet your goal and their goals. And I'm much quieter now, believe it or not, than I used to be about going into a room and I want to share my ideas. And I want to find a connection of doing that. And it's about really listening to other people's goals and and Evin and Kathleen mentioned this, right? When somebody lights up and you're talking to them, you can't be completely silent, but you want to listen to what you'll see people's faces light up when you connect with what means a lot to them, their purpose and what they're working. And it's across, I've worked nonprofit, for-profit, now I'm at the state education agency. It's the same look you'll see in someone's face when you connect with something that means a lot to them. And that's really where the partnership, I feel, starts. Way before the KPIs and the timelines and the MOUs and all those other things, is everybody wants to connect on some level. There's a few sociopaths in our society that don't really want to do that, but generally, everybody wants to connect. Everyone wants to connect with people who share, maybe not exactly their priorities, but at least a general mission, and build trust. So that trust building, and for me, the trust building comes from that initial really listening to what the other person is saying and giving them the space. And this is something I think we don't do enough to support teachers, and teachers need to work more with students, is to give everybody enough space to express what means the most to them in schools, after school programs, any of our things. And you're all exchange professionals, right? You absolutely know this. You give everybody you work with the space to express themselves. And I think that's the same with any sort of approach, building a programmatic partnership or financial arrangement.
Thank you, David. So now let's go into more into the pitching part. You here in the last 2 days being like probably approached for many organizations talking about funding. What, and this is a free question, everyone can answer. What do you think are the key things that you wanted to hear when someone approached you to actually have a conversation about funding? What you can tell to everyone that's watching this show, that you can say like, normally you have like a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minute conversation. What are the key items that you think that I really am happy when I hear in these first minute conversations?
I think honestly the biggest thing is the vision, right? It's selling the vision, but also believing in it. And it doesn't have to say, hey, we're affecting 1 million people, right? Affecting one person is a tremendous accomplishment. So looking at it from that perspective is what are they doing, how are they doing it, who are they surrounding themselves with? One of the things that we always look for on our side, I'd like to say, especially from a funding perspective, is don't mistake activity for achievement. Right, so everyone's posting images online, everyone's posting videos, but what is actually happening within a community? And speaking with entrepreneurs, that's really what I do every single day. It's my DNA to the fullest, is understanding their vision and surrounding them with partners, funders, educators, corporate companies as well, and moving the needle forward together. So I think it's the vision and then the passion more than anything else.
Absolutely agree. I want to add that from a corporate perspective, and sometimes when we do get approached, I think what's really, really important is understanding your audience, right? Is making sure that you know who you're speaking to about your programs, and that there is some intersection of goals or interest or vision. Because that, at the end of the day, is going to be what elevates the conversation, what leads you to a strategic partnership. Because if it's mutually beneficial, then it's something that you can invest in for the long term and see a vision and work together towards some very strategic goals and outputs. And so I think that it's very important from a non-profit NGO perspective to really understand your mission and then know who you're speaking to, because there are plenty of funders out there and you should really be targeting those that have some type of intersection, because you shouldn't be changing your mission to get money from anyone. It should be something that's really strategic. And so I just want to make sure that that's something that I share, because when it is right, it'll happen and it takes a completely different shape.
Thank you, Kathleen. And before going to David, it's very interesting how Evin mentioned about the importance of having a mission And Kathleen is like you need to understand the mission of the funder also, and not change your mission to just approach the fund. It's about talking about the same things, like having your mission clear and align with the other mission of the corporate or the organization that you're approaching. David?
Yeah, I would add that, especially with grants, I've had many more grants and proposals for funding to foundations rejected than I have accepted. And I've also been on the grant giving side, and I've had to say no to a lot of wonderful projects. And both those things have taught me that feedback you get is a great opportunity to build a foundation for future cooperation. Some projects, it took 5 or 6 years to build a relationship with program officers in Washington, D.C. in order to eventually be funded. And that feedback is really important. So your initial disappointment, you got the letter, not going to work out, try to ask, what, am I on the cusp of almost getting it? And people will tell you. If you ask, people will tell you very clearly, at least the good program officers and philanthropists, they'll say, it doesn't fit us right now, but maybe in a few years in the next cycle it will fit, and that's a chance to build that trust and understanding, because it's, those multi-year relationships, I think, are really important. So seek out feedback as much as you can beyond any disappointment you might have in the moment, and I think that's probably my best advice for that.
So it's a learning process. So yeah, let's take it from what you just said. So it's very important to get feedback about the things that we did wrong or why we didn't get the fund. So can we actually tell our audience here, what do you consider, everyone here, consider the most normal mistakes that organizations make when they approach you to get a fund? What are the things that you normally see like red flags? Or say like, oh, this is something that it is a normally, if I have the opportunity to give feedback, this is normally one of the things that I normally have to say.
I believe one of the things for us, and I think, and I'm speaking from a VP America perspective in my role as strategic relationships and initiatives, and now we're looking at different opportunities and sponsorships that come our way. And we talk about STEM, that's one of our main focuses. We've got some other focuses like Veterans Outreach and other initiatives that we do specifically in the United States. And then I also wear another hat, which is the Executive Director of the BP Foundation. But right now, we're very focused on our employee match program, which is volunteerism in the community and how we support our employees to get involved from a foundation perspective, and our disaster relief. So we're not grant making right now, and that's okay. We're going to get to that point again, and we're looking at it. From a strategic partnership perspective and initiatives, we do have corporate funds. So the partnership we have with AFS is not through the foundation, it's actually through corporate dollars. And it is a STEM initiative. But it's also global competence. It's aligned with our vision for our workforce. What I want to say is not every program titled STEM is going to allow it align with our funding priorities. And so I think that we have seen a couple of programs that they add the word STEM to any initiative and they think that this aligns with you. And I'm like, but we're maybe a little. And so we work on that together. And I'm the type of person that really values everyone's time. And I know that if I'm very honest with someone and we have a really good conversation, I want to make sure that I'm valuing your time. And if it looks like there's some opportunity down the in the future, then we can have a conversation about how that is. But if not, I want to tell you, it's not a really good fit. But I might share other opportunities with other partners that I think are good fits, because I don't want you to waste your time. because it's valuable. I value your time, and at the same time, I don't want you to keep coming back with a request that is not going to get funded. Your time is better spent doing that with other organizations that have a possible connection and that possibly could get funded. So I think that would be it. I think there was a time where STEM was, and so we want to make sure that it is the right type of program, the right KPIs, the vision, the strategy. So don't just add that to a portfolio to make that appealing. It's really the content, the mission, the shared vision.
Great. Evin?
Yeah, I agree with all that. And even what Dave said before, it's actually our kind of big bulletin board word this year is ask. I think that's something that most funders, organizations, entrepreneurs don't do enough. Is put themselves out there. And so always the red flag on my part is you have to be willing to run through a wall for it. I mean, business is hard, education is hard, changing is hard, and that's really what this is all about today. But I think the biggest thing is, for me, like I mentioned before, is that second step. So once they receive the money, what happens next? And then what happens after that? The biggest step that I would see is a complete turnoff is no follow-up plan. So what happens from, hey, you get a check today, where is that going? And then how are you, from a for-profit side, how is that showing investment? Or from a nonprofit side, how is that showing impact? So always showing kind of both sides of the fence here, and sometimes they mesh, right? I think Triple Bottom Line and B Corps have kind of brought together this community in a great way. But just from kind of that red flag aspect, we'll say, honestly, like the fire is one part of it, always for me. But the second part is definitely that vision more than anything.
This happens a lot. Personal experience with this, you mission drift, right? So there's not perfect alignment, and instead of going back to your mission and your core values and your evidence and your stories and your community, and starting from there, you tweak things in order to fit an RFP or somebody else's vision. And it's very tempting to do. And it ultimately is not good because you misalign and you don't want the money, right? And you don't want that program when it's misaligned, because then it just, as Kathleen, it wastes everybody's time eventually, right? So you have to, and I can kind of tell now in conversations, if it's just a little bit off, that's okay. Approach it at a time where it's a little bit, you can always revisit, but taking a program on that's misaligned is worse than not getting a program and a partnership set up. It's just too valuable to people's time, right? So that's my opinion.
Thank you, David. Before the next question, I want to remind the audience here that you can have questions and the volunteers are going to collect it for you. But also you can write your questions in Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, so we can actually get those questions for our guests. So let's take it for what, Evin, you were mentioning away. What happened after you actually get the funding? How do we do the following up to transform this one-time win into a partnership proposition? Like, how, this is for everyone, how do we actually do the right steps in a following up process after the first week?
First week, I mean, that's a lot of pressure the first week. But I'll tell you that, like, once you receive the funding, that's when the work really starts. All right, so the funding is step one here, but that day one, forget week one, is where the pressure really starts melting. But I think, honestly, anyone that's handing you over money, right, in any way, shape, or form, even what Kathleen said before, like time, right, I find that to be, from an entrepreneurship side as well, that's by far the most valuable resource. And I find most people don't understand that aspect as well. But from the follow-up side of it, it's just getting aligned on mission and being as honest as possible with funders, under-promising, over-delivering to the fullest on every single dollar that comes in here. And that's something we always look for too. So working directly with them, right? No one's out there just giving blind money out. It has to be valuable. They're investing in you, right? Especially right out of the gate. There's a million ideas that they go after. They're not investing in mature businesses or ideas. They're investing in you personally. So touching upon what Dave said before, it's that spark, right? Don't change your mission, don't change your attitude, be authentic, and then get aligned. Right? Like, so day one, week one, I mean, like from our side, I have venture capital calls every other week. And it could be a 5-minute conversation, it could be a 5-hour conversation. It's not all, guys, you didn't hit this market today, and the company's shutting down. It's never like that. Right? They're just as much a partner in the company as I am. So I think aligning from that perspective and understanding together how are we growing is something you need right out of the gate. This cannot be something, 6 months that the investor knocks on the door and says, guys, where's the return? Especially from a social impact side, because it's never going to happen. And it's the wrong funding, to be honest. So getting aligned right out of the gate and understanding a very hard schedule, what the deliverables are, and be vulnerable, right? Like, you're going to fail, it's okay. That's something our society doesn't preach enough. You're supposed to fail, right? Like, all of us are trying to do very, very important, but hard work. So just get aligned more than anything else. It's really, really simple.
Kathleen?
Oh, yeah, okay. So what I'm thinking when you were talking about that, absolutely, get aligned, is very, very important, understanding each other's goals. But I think that one of the things I think that's important from a funding perspective and then also from the NGO side is that you don't have all the answers at the beginning. So you really, if it's a valuable partnership, there is a two-way street of communication. And it's necessary so that you can pivot and make changes along the way and working together. So you're not just submitting something at the end and sharing maybe some deliverables that didn't quite meet up at the beginning, but because you're working as a partner together, that you are able to phone and say, we ran into this challenge, or we saw this opportunity. This was interesting to us. And working together in a partnership to say, okay, maybe that's something that we need to kind of integrate into our vision and mission and the outcomes. And that's one of the things I think we've done very well with AFS. And it is having that ongoing relationship and partnership where you work together. One of the other things I like to say is we're trying to get to the point where we're focused on fewer, better, bigger, or fewer, bigger, better. So that we're working with less partners, but maybe in a bigger way that's more strategic and that really we can focus more time to, rather than spending just a little bit of time with too many different partners. And so I think that those wins are there if you can pivot and then see that strategic value. But you don't have all the answers at the beginning, and that's not going to be valuable for anyone. If you stick to these parameters, because we said those were important at the beginning, but then you 3 months in, you see something and you say, well, you know what, that's not really relevant anymore, and we need to pivot a little bit. And having that relationship is going to be able to help your outcomes, and that needs to happen.
Really?
That's a great point of nuance there. You said before that misalignment is one thing. So pivoting in the partnership is much different, right? And that's, again, it's where the trust comes in, have that relationship, do that. Sometimes you can't tell at the beginning if there's a misalignment or you just need to tweak something. But for me, the implementation part it's always reflected in how the development went and the relationship before the funding began. You can kind of tell how people are going to behave with implementation, the collaborativeness of the partnership almost always follows what the development part of the initial conversations were. So I think it's a really good point. There's a difference between pivot and misalignment. And when you think about, I don't know, how many people in the audience have gotten that letter of funding for a program or a grant or it's a great feeling, isn't it?
Yes.
It's like, wow, and there's I've had two feelings, like, oh, right? Like, I gotta do this, or you gotta do this now, what have I done? And the other one is like, this is it, right? This is right in our wheelhouse. It's exactly what we should be doing. And so, yeah, that having a partner that's going to be flexible and understanding and build a relationship, build something together, is something that I think is one of the joys of partnership.
Feels good.
Yeah, and the one to summarize it in a way that it seems like the difference between getting a fund and becoming a partnership, you start having a relation where you actually need trust and vulnerability. It's okay to fail as long as you're saying it, and as you say, like you wanted to correct it during the implementation. Great. So now we're going to go to the questions of the people here and the people back home. And this is one of the questions that we receive now. It's how can we do when we have an educational project, when the funder want to have goals that are in the long term, but it's also demanding for goals in the very short term, but you don't have the chance to have outputs really in the short term. So like it's more about like your projects are really going to show results in the long term, but the funders are demanding for some results in the short term.
Well, one is probably the wrong funder. I mean, simple as that. But it is kind of pivoting as well, right? So that was a word that just got brought up. Is all right, we're not going to hit X in year 1 or in 6 months or 5 years. What can we actually hit that's going to be low-hanging fruit for our organization? And I think, again, it's the trust, right? Like partnerships are a marriage, right? Sometimes they fail, sometimes they work fantastically. Ideally, they work fantastically. But from that side as well, it's getting on the exact same page. If a funder, I would say, is pushing in that sense, they probably don't understand your business as well as you do, or your initiative, or your education program, and they have to get on that same page. So surround yourself with people that are going to make you successful, and not those that are changing your vision.
I agree. I think absolutely. I mean, I think that at the end of the day, clarity. I mean, just having a clear understanding of what you can achieve right now, what that looks like, and what it looks like in the long term. And if you go into it with different expectations of outcomes, then you're absolutely right. That's probably not the right funder, and so you have to have that understanding. And what does short-term wins look like, and what do long-term wins look like?
Good. You okay with that?
Yeah. And clarity, I think it's kind of the theme this year for me. Clarity is kind, right? Clarity is kindness. And you want to make sure that it's beyond just transparency. Clarity, there's more qualitative basis, right, to the kindness. So you don't want to waste when it's time, but you want to make sure that you invest in the clarity, right?
Okay, next question. It's kind of challenging for what we start. Says, stories are powerful, but more and more donors demand metrics to demonstrate impact and success. What kind of metrics have you found and used to satisfy and inspire donors?
I can do it from a corporate perspective.
We can switch.
Yeah, great question, whoever asked that one. But I think look at digital metrics, right? It's a really easy thing to wrap your head around. So how many eyeballs on it? How many people are clicking on it? How many views is it, right? Like we live in this like economy where all of a sudden a like gives power to something, and most of the time it's not necessarily the best thing. I mean, Instagram is doing away with likes. I think it's a fantastic thing, especially for mindfulness and mental health. But how do we take those digital metrics and push them physically, right? So if you look at social impact projects, how many people in the community are affected, right? What's the bottom line revenue that's created from the community because of your initial project and that spark? So I think the key performance indicators are absolutely necessary. Most funders are not just going to say, guys, great story, but go get them. Like there's no other impact here. But again, it's positioning yourself for success right out of the gate. So looking at it from a perspective of saying, well, this is what we expect to achieve. And understand how many people are reaching. It's all about the eyeball game, right? More than anything else. How many people are engaged in either physically touching, conceptualizing, or just participating in a project. I think that's one of the big things from a KPI standpoint. Physically, at least, if you're not physically selling a product, how many people are you reaching, and then what is their results from that?
Okay. Did I turn this up? Okay, this is okay. I was trying to think of. The question was about how, from a funder's perspective, what are some of the successful metrics? From a corporate perspective, I think that metrics are definitely important. But if you're investing in something, for example, STEM education, that's a long-term gain, right? You're not going to be able to have some, quantitative, qualitative information and data and metrics, but social media and all that digital metrics is very important, and it tells a story. But then I also wanted to add that there's also the follow-up. There's a continued conversation. There is the end of the year report, obviously. That's really, so you highlight all of the wonderful things that are happening. The storytelling is really big, and we do with AFS, and I see Evin there in the audience. The report is important because we're actually doing a lot of surveys of impact. And the impact sometimes is a measurement of the impact on the student. So how their world perspective has changed. And you can't put that into a number. And so we want to make sure we're capturing that. How has a parent seen, how was their experience when their student came back? And then also, how does this, and this is really important in a conversation that I would recommend everyone have, is, corporations have internal stakeholders as well. So I have to then also work internally to make sure that we have continued funding to support some of these initiatives. So I have to be an ambassador for your program, and I have to understand the relevance and the impact that you're making, so that then I can go inside internally and make sure that we have funding to give. And so I think that understanding that, storytelling, but really a combination of storytelling and understanding the impact, and it's not always going to be in metrics, but how do you take that and communicate that to your funder, I think is also very important.
I get lost without numbers.
Yeah.
In any part of the process. The numbers, of course, give you information. And as I said earlier about feedback, right? You really want numbers to help whether you're doing a good job or not. And they don't have to be onerous. You can set really good, clear, achievable goals. You don't want to freak anybody out, but I think they're really important. The evidence that my team, I just saw last week, of our work in California schools and district teachers, we had both quantitative data, but we also had these testimonials, hundreds of them, and those testimonials and that data just helps the story, but it also gives me the structure in order to build programs and partnerships too. So without numbers, I would be like, what are we doing?
Right. Well, you know what? You make a very valid point, and I think it really depends on the program. So, for example, with AFS, we are impacting 100 students, but that's not where our impact ends, right? And but from a numbers perspective, we know we're working with a certain scholarship base. And then, but what happens above and beyond that, I think. And so if you do have the input, like impact in schools where you're reaching students and teachers and how does that impact numbers, I think it's great. But also really understanding what are the capabilities of metrics in a program so that you don't, from a funder's perspective, don't expect something that can't be achieved. And I've seen that happen. And so I just say that, really understand and have a good understanding of what is expected and what's feasible, I guess.
Okay. We're going back and forward between metrics and stories. You're probably gonna like the next one. Can you share with us one of the best storytelling that you remember, so we have a good idea of what a successful story can be for a family?
Yeah, great question. So I'll go back to, I'm just writing all the stories in my head right now. But I'll give you an example. So our program in Louisville actually is a fantastic example of this. So the entire city is split from a racial segregation standpoint. I mean, it's one on one side, one on the other. And looking at it from that perspective, looking at the at-risk communities, how are we serving them up unique resources that are actually taking their learning, again, position them for success. So we started to align with the university down there as well and serve up in a micro-credential type of format content directly to high school students. So generally, you get the attitude of, oh, our kids can't do it, which is such BS, it's unbelievable. All they have to do is be positioned for it. So serving them up that hardcore skill set and then giving them a pathway to university is fantastic. But what about those early age learners as well, right? And how do we start positioning them? So we work with like the Louisville Zoo down there. It is like a partner of ours in a big program that we're putting together citywide. And looking at it from a perspective of how we're serving up content to that one student that probably has never seen a polar bear before, except maybe on their television, getting them active, and then you start thinking about, what's the natural chain reaction with a community like that as well, where, one side of the community is a food desert completely, right? So serving up resources and breaking that cycle is so critical and vital to just the sustainability within the community. And bridging them into kind of this program where they're able to spark creativity and curiosity, understand about polar bears, and then bring them directly to the Louisville Zoo with their family, get a behind-the-scenes sneak of polar bears, and all of a sudden an 8-year-old, you build a veterinarian now. So having those types of stories is absolutely vital. There's an awesome teacher in the crowd, I'll put her onto the bus right now, Sean Pollack as well. One of my favorite stories, so I'll make it quick, guys. She's an incredible school in Ottawa, all about kind of startup and nurturing ideas. And one of her students, Grace, got really passionate. This is like our go-to story, so I'm so happy to tell it. But one of her students, Grace, got really passionate a few years ago after having conversations with a young woman from South Sudan, all about equity, right? And the hardships that young women face in South Sudan. So she started to ask questions, and she messaged us and said, hey guys, how do we get connected and learn more about this a little bit? And after connecting with a young woman, I want to move the needle forward, right? I want to build a shelter. And you hear that from a 13-year-old, it's chills to the fullest, and supporting them in every way, shape, and form possible. So we partnered Grace with just one organization, had a fantastic conversation. Myself and Sean were on the call too. And at the end of it, this was the no-shoot moment, and it's a nice way to say it, is Grace said, well, I think I had white privilege before. And you start thinking about that from, again, a 13-year-old perspective and understanding what's actually going on the ground in South Sudan. Since then, Grace has raised about $5,000 for this organization, sort of multiple events at her school. But more than anything, it's not about the money, right? Like myself and Sean were blown away if she raised $1, right? It was the entire process that she took. She empowered her community. Her classmates now organize this awesome event too, and they're on their way to actually helping the community move forward. So that to me is like everything we could possibly do. If we do nothing right in education after this conference, that's the go-to story. We can hang our hat on that one.
That's a global citizen then.
That's a global citizen.
Stand up. Kathleen?
We've got it. You know what? There is one story that I'll tell. It was interesting because we have, we've got a lot of smaller programs that our partnership with AFS brings together all of these students from all over the world into 3 specific academies. One is in the US, one is in Cairo, and one is in Natal, Brazil. And we're actually adding a 4th next year, which will be in India. And so we'll be growing the program, and it's a great opportunity for us. But just this past summer in the US, Houston is the site for our for our US camp. And we were able, and this is where the numbers come in, right? We had, I guess it was 29 students in our US Academy. I might be a little off, that came from all over the world. And then we had an additional for the BP Day, where we bring them all in and they talk to our CEO, they talk to engineers, we've got a engineering design competition, they learn about the engineering process, and then they had to build a shoe. A multi-purpose shoe, but we also partnered with the University of Houston, which is where your relationships come in. And so instead of touching, or reaching, I should say, 30 students that day, we had another 50 high school students from around the United States that worked with our global students from AFS on these projects. And one of the projects, as I mentioned, was building the shoe. The shoe had to be multi-purpose, and it actually had to be a shoe that you could wear at the end of the day. And you also had to put together a campaign around the shoe. So how do you sell it? What's the purpose? Why would you buy it? Why do you need it? And so these students were from all over the world and from the US. working together again, because our whole goal is how do you problem solve, how do you innovate together, what ideas do you bring in. And one of the highest performing shoes that was presented was just amazing. I mean, first of all, I don't think I could have done that. And so when you see what actually students can accomplish, it's mind-blowing. And so at the end of the day, they were all very successful, all great. All of them were, somebody was wearing them, so it was actually created for an individual, and they were great stories. What was unique was after maybe a week later, I got a call from the University of Houston, from our partners at the College of Engineering, and she said, I'm really excited that you decided to include our students from Promise. So Promise is the program for increasing minorities in engineering studies. And the students, because the one student came from Chicago, said, when we were working on that project, one of the AFS students from Mexico really helped us because that's his life. He and his family make their shoes. He comes from a part of Mexico that's so economically disadvantaged. It's something that they deal with. And he said, so what he brought to the table was amazing, you know, his background and what they do, and he called them huaraches. But what that student took away was understanding that privilege element and being and saying, I understand now what I have and not just what I don't have. You know, because he wasn't coming from a very privileged home either, but he now sees it as what's in front of me. And it was a lesson in global competence and understanding and cultural, being a global citizen, and how he understood his privilege, but also the appreciation of other cultures and what they don't have, and how you can take those ideas and that impact and then really bring them all together into innovation and to creativity and to, you know, impact. So I think that this summer was probably one of my favorite stories.
Thank you, Kathleen. David?
I don't have any stories.
You have numbers. You have many. Come on. Give us one story that someone approached that you say, like, you remember it.
I have some stories. I was very touched many years ago. I worked for IEARN, International Education Resource Network. It was the summer of 2001, before everyone's lives changed in September of that year. And we hosted an international conference in Cape Town, South Africa. And like the late 90s, early 2000s, there was a lot of enthusiasm for online learning, virtual exchanges. There were all sorts of startups in Silicon Valley and popping up all over the world, how we connect teachers and students. It was a bit wild before everything was in the tank for a while. But we had brought together, I think it ended up being 1,200 teachers in Cape Town. And we were working with the World Bank and to really try to launch global collaboration, online global collaboration, what that was going to look like with State Department and World Bank, UN. So I don't know who did this, but we were able to get about 40 Iranian teachers to this conference. And at the time, it was the largest delegation of Iranian teachers ever to leave their country to attend a conference overseas with American teachers. And for anybody here, I think Joanna has worked with US teachers and Iranian teachers. You know, the late 90s and early 2000s were not a great time in relations to do something like that. But we were able to pull it off. But we didn't know, we got everybody in a room one night. And of course, South Africa, it's the summer, so it's the winter there. And we're in the dormitories, and it's really cold outside, and we didn't know what to do. And we were all like, we're experienced cross-cultural communicators, we've all been in exchange for a long time, we have partners here from all over the world, and we had groups of Iranian US teachers who were just like, what do we talk about? We can talk about the elephant in the room, right? Relations to our country. We really don't want to talk about that. So someone brought out a birthday cake. And to this day, I don't know if it was really somebody's birthday or not, but it didn't really matter. We just all cut the cake and started from there. And the collaborations that came out of that particular, and it took just like 5 minutes of, it just broke everything open, right? It was the ultimate icebreaker of this chocolate cake. I got pictures of it still. Like, did we really do that? And I had a chance 10 years later to Doha for another Iron Conference to meet. We, Qatar Foundation International was able to bring in Iranian teachers and their minders, and got to see some of those teachers we'd met 10 years, 11 years before. And it was beautiful because a lot of online projects in IRN during those 10 years where teachers are never able to meet each other, just online. And for me, that was the power of the virtual exchange and doing that. But still, being able to have an opportunity to get them in one room, and this time they know what to do, right? Because they did a hug, basically. And it was just that beautiful moment. So always trust teachers to be able to find a way across cultures, whether it's in person or through technology, to connect and then be able to spread that to their students. So that's one of my favorites.
Thank you, David. So you do remember your story.
It turns out.
So we are going close to the end of the session. Last words. What is your final tip for going to everyone here to go and finding funds for global citizen and global competence initiatives? Last tips.
Again, know your mission. Dave actually just brought up a good point, and I have to just touch on it for last words. It's human capital, right? So you're not only looking at financial capital on the bottom line, but what are you actually bringing to the business personally? What is that your partners bringing to the business? Dave gave a great example of the human capital going into a relationship, not necessarily talking about the elephant in the room, but breaking down to say where people were connecting and how do we move forward together in this. I think that's global citizenship to the fullest, and from an impact side of the project side of it, those are the conversations that you need to have to know your worth, know the understanding, and really where you're going with it.
Thank you. Kathleen?
Yeah, I agree. I think knowing your organization's mission, really holding fast to that, and then knowing who you're talking to and their mission, and ensuring that you have some connectivity and some alliance or some strategy together that you can work together to have that mission. And one other thing I will say is, when you mentioned human capital, I can't tell you how valuable that is. And especially from the organization's perspective, but we also have a lot of human capital in our employees. So integrating some employee engagement and involvement, and I have to tell you that the key to a partnership is being able to have multi-connections with an organization. So if you have, I say this to the folks at AFS, if we really truly want to institutionalize the program in part of BP, then I want to make sure that everyone understands it internally. And so how do you get employees involved? How do you get leadership involved so that you build those relationships within the company, and it's not just one person being your champion?
Dave?
Yes. Right. I like attending small gatherings, as well as, like, this conference is a great place to go have panels like this, but small conversations with people. See whose face lights up when you talk to them about what you care about, and how you feel when they tell you what they care about, right? That's a great place to start. I've made lots of lists from the Foundation Center, right? Here's the top 100 STEM or social-emotional learning, right? Add SEL to all your proposals now. That's not where it starts, right? It starts with people who care about what you're doing and people that you care about. And so attend conferences, have small conversations, attend smaller meetings, author meetings, book signings, attend Crash Test World premieres, but small events too in your communities, and you'll find people there, and when their face lights up, that's a great place to start.
So go out there and attend all the events that you can go. Kathleen, Evin, and David, thank you so much for this. Thank you, everyone.